Next thing I'm going to do here is look at gauges and sending units, and I'll show you what I'm going to do with that. And then also I had a little issue with the headers, and we'll cover that also. See, here's my brake line block and everything, and actually the header on this side was just way too close to it. It's about too close for comfort for me, so we need to do something with that. So here's my solution, is I basically heat wrap the headers. The headers are ceramic coated, which is going to bring the temperature down a little bit, and the heat wrap should bring it down a little bit more, I'll say. So that's the header in place just with a couple of bolts. You can see how close that is. There's about from the header wrap itself, it's about a 1/2 inch gap, and then again the header wrap, it's really not that close to the header because of how I had to double wrap these tubes here. There's really more space. It's a good solid 3/4 of an inch, but still pretty close. I did not video doing the header wrap. There's some really good videos out there already, some guys doing it. Wasn't that hard, it's a little time consuming. A good side effect of the header wrap is it should reduce the underhood temperature quite a bit. Everything I read on it, it's really considerably less. My concerns with the gauges were that I have some really nice autometer analog gauges and this factory dash tack, and I want to use those. And basically the LS computer can't drive them. And the temperature is pretty simple. What everybody recommends is you run 2 separate circuits. One circuit will go to the computer, and the other one you just run it separate right to the gauge. And the other is the oil sending unit. This is the oil sending unit right here, and you could take your sending unit from the analog gauges and hook it up there, but it also needs to be hooked up to, or should be hooked up to, the computer, so the computer knows when there's oil pressure or not oil pressure. So kind of the what I gathered was to run 2 circuits on that also. The tack, you basically need a converter. And again, for the tack, the only way that I've found that we can do this is with a tack adapter. I got this one from MSD. This is part number 8920. And this is basically a module here, mounted to wherever, and your input to here is from the computer, and your output then goes to your analog gauge. I'm not going to mess with this now until a little farther down the road. For the temperature, this is a hole here where the sending unit goes, and of course it's metric. This is where the LS sending unit will go on the left-hand front, because that's where the essentially the pigtail from the computer will go. Then to run a gauge, come over here, and there's a hole right back here, but it's metric, but I want to get my analog sending unit in. These 2 things here, these are the block off back of the motor. This here is a temperature sending unit. This is for the LS, plugs into the computer, and then this to run the gauge and be able to put it into the head of the LS. The sending unit for the gauge is American Standard pipe threads, I believe. You need to get this adapter. Okay, the sending unit basically screws in to that adapter, the adapter to the head. These are from Autometer. Pay attention to the part numbers. The adapter is Autometer part number 2277, and the sending unit is Autometer part number 2259. Now, depending upon your gauge, you may have a different sending unit. I want to pre-assemble the gauge sending unit. Again, these are pipe threads, so make sure you put tape on, pipe tape. How the pre-assembly looks. And here's our pre-assembly. Copper crush ring on there. And for the computer sending unit, it's pretty straightforward. Copper crush ring. You got to have that on there because that's what actually seals it off. And basically just stick it in the hole and tighten it down. So these are the steam pipe holes, one here and one here, that need to be blocked off on the back of the block. These plugs and those O-rings. So basically the O-ring goes onto the hole here, and then This just gets bolted down. Here's that crossover tube for the front, and it's just like, it has these like the block off plates, but then it has a connecting tube and a exit tube. Here's the O-rings that'll go on the back, just like on the block off plates. So this guy bolts down just like the block off plates in the back. Held down with 2 screws. With the new O-rings, make sure you have the O-rings on there. And then these get tightened down to 106 inch-pounds. So what the purpose of this thing is, my understanding is that unlike a small block Chevy, the LS block, the coolant runs from the bottom up as opposed to the top down. So as it runs to the bottom up, you can get air bubbles and air pockets. So this is basically, they call it a steam tube. So this connects left to right hand side on the heads, and then this here will actually go to the radiator, so that there's a way for the air to. Here are the 2 oil sending units. The one on the right is the old one that came with the gauge, and the one on the left is the one that came off the LS. Remember, got to have that crush ring on there, and it basically just screws on down in there and you tighten it down. What people do is they put the oil sending unit onto this block off plate, which is right above where the oil filter goes. Basically drill and tap a hole in the top of it and screw the sending unit in. Took off the block off plate. Here it is. It's nothing really special. It's got a gasket on the back. This bolts onto the oil pan. So I put together this little contraption here and screwed it to it so that it can so that I can drill it on the angle. The angle and the hole I drilled is like this. Threads that match the sending unit are 1/8 inch 27 National Pipe threads. Make sure you obviously clean this thing out. So I got the block off plate all cleaned out. Here's the sending unit. Use some Teflon tape. Remember, these are pipe threads, so you need to seal that off. And we should be able to just screw this thing on in here. How it looks, and as the inside looks. You can see right there the hole for the sending unit. Put it back on. Remember to put that gasket on that goes between it. Yeah, that worked out fairly well. Clearance all the way around it. That whole angled out thing was really important. It would not have worked without that angling out. So tighten up that one, and which goes to the computer, and we're good for oil sending units. While it's easy to do, I'm going to go ahead and put starter on.